in terms of being sensitive to the backgrounds of young people, we can't, there's not always a case that we're aligned and we have the similar backgrounds, right? So it could be that I have the same ethnicity as a young person. It could be we have the same attitudes about certain things, but from a class perspective, it could be a completely different experience. So for me, I can't then assume that just because I'm a man, a man of color, a black man, that I'm going to automatically connect with a young black cishet black man or a young students of color. I can't assume that because there's so many different things within the system, so many different ways of experiencing oppression that we won't share everything. I do think that, culturally relevant teaching to means something different to me now than it did when I first heard it. I honestly feel now that the kind of the ethic behind culturally relevant approach or culturally relevant pedagogy to me is really seeing the whole person. And so when seeing the whole person is not only knowing what experiences they've had within the education system to date, you'll get some of that information in the intake, but even seeing how they show up and knowing historically, knowing about the systems within the education system within the US, maybe even knowing what it looks like within your city or town. And in some ways, I do think it's a matter of your will. Or do you want to get to know your young people better? And because it's going to cost you something. I mean, it's work. And you're sharing power in that learning space. And so I do think it starts with the will, the want to get to know, and the want to be able to share power. Because if you're not sharing power, then it's power over. And that's not a space for learning, just knowing about the brain science behind people being in the ability to learn in a space. If you're in fear, if you're anxious, if you're feeling like you're not being seen, if you're feeling like for folks who may need to mask certain tendencies that maybe from a neurological standpoint, it's not a norm thing to do. Maybe you like to fidget or you need fidgets to focus. I feel like that's going to take over your mind and flood your mind is my experiences as a teacher and a learner. But I also think that's part of engagement in terms of learning. If you're not providing chunks of learning to make it practical for the young person in their lived experience to be able to understand it, the transfer of that knowledge, or to let them or help them affirm something that they've already known, but they've never been in a space to actually look at themselves as having that as an asset. It's been more of something they had to use for survival, right? Maybe it's other people say they're clever. For them, it's like, I've had to survive, so I always have to be 10 steps ahead or have like eyes in the back of my head, for lack of a better term. And so they may get that affirmed coming into their classroom as, oh, wow, I like how you sequentially took those steps, or you were able to kind of think outside the box. But when you get into a space where you can have that affirmed, I think that kind of speaks to your identity. Wow, I have a thing that's actually like not frowned upon. And even in the want, it also helps you grow. So I'll admit that part of it for me is also like my learning it can only happen as much as I'm willing to engage with myself, to open up myself to young people and to even ways that I think and want to engage. So my experience is I have to have that intention from the outset, or else I can't even utilize these kind of frameworks of thinking or concepts or what have you.